Back again at the TECHNESS Corner. Another episode in the new series for everyone to devour. We've got a little bit of a showcase on the item itself. It's approximately almost 10 years of age and was needing a service. Massive problems essentially with the item, like majority of stuff that comes in for our tech consults. It's essentially very, very sluggish, and that's to put it lightly. As a result, we are going to see what we can do in relation to it to address what's going on exactly. Some work has already been done on the system. Yeah, so without keeping you guys waiting any longer, let's get into what exactly we are talking about. And here I'll start to paint a slightly better picture in relation to what it is exactly we are servicing today, I guess, and repairing, but not so much as replacing a part that's already been diagnosed as faulty. So let us get into what is Tech Console Episode 4.
Seb Luka.
So yeah, Tech Consults episode 4. So yeah, we're essentially looking at the ASUS Vivobook S551L B specific variant. And there she is in not necessarily all her glory, because all her glory will be exposure of the backside of her when we get into it. Ooh, the backside, into it. She was priced at approximately 1,400 Australian dollars upon release and released in approximately 2014, at least this model specific. While the chip inside is an Intel i7, it's not your typical i7, frankly. It was low power. It was your low power variant. And as a SKU of an i7 from yesteryear in that low power variant, of course, to lower the power of the i7, tisk and NVIDIA, by the way, they did something similar, which Intel was doing back then. They labeled it an i7, and it has 2 cores and 4 threads. At least it's got hyper-threading, and that's been enabled as well in this PC. But yeah, 2 cores on an i7. That doesn't seem to sit well with me, frankly. In relation to the desktop SKUs and everything back from yesteryear, it's something that Intel has done that NVIDIA did just recently, but negged on and got away with, frankly. So that's something to consider, guys. So speaking of the CPU chip in this ASUS Vivobook, the model from yesteryear is an Intel Core i7, to be precise, 4500U, with a base speed of only 1.8 gigahertz, which wasn't bad back then depending on what you were using it for. And on a side note, it was meant to hit 2.4 gigahertz. I've already got this CPU in my optimizational process managing to hit 2.7 gigahertz on all cores and threads, and that was observed through Cinebench R15 only, which I thought R15 was very fitting in relation to this PC to utilize. But this was obviously after addressing the original concerns and problems that were associated with the PC when it came in, on top of it being really sluggish. And I mean, the drive was hitting 100% under idle circumstances. It seemed to have a virus as well. And unfortunately, the keyboard, many of the buttons were non-responsive, which signified that it could have been as a result of this prank virus that was on the PC as well. But that side of things we'll get into in the conclusion and how we address the problems with it. But essentially, moving forward, the Western Digital 1 terabyte drive currently in is pressing forward, has been a blessing in disguise that it's become faulty, because it's pretty much on its way out. Unfortunately, the drive, it's not worth salvaging. It's only a 1 terabyte drive. There are no other options except currently replacing it. On the other hand, what we will replace it with, we'll get to in a second, but this drive was not even a 7200 RPM drive. It was only as a spindle of 5400 RPM drive. It had an 8 megabyte cache, SATA form factor, and designed for your mobile laptop in relation to its size at the 2.5 inches. A bit of a thick boy at 9.5 millimeters, and it was busted. It was frankly busted. I reinstalled Windows on it. I cleaned it up. I cleaned everything up. I was hoping it wasn't the case. I was hoping it was the virus or something associated with it that was causing it to peg. Unfortunately, it is compromised as well from just usage, quite excessive amounts of usage it seems, and or was just a drive that was opted to fail at some stage. So moving us and pressing forward, I've consulted with the client, and the client has decided that taking my advice, a budget-orientated SSD will really couple well with the Vivobook that he's currently got to get a bit more life out of it. And realistically, it's going to have Windows 10 installed on it. And since Windows 10 only has a couple of years left of serviceable use, this SSD to add to the cost of doing business with this computer again won't break the bank. It's only $95 as opposed to 1 terabyte, because it's a 1 terabyte SSD, the Crucial BX500 to be exact. Won't break the bank as opposed to others which cost you upwards of about $140, $150 still in Australia for your better pedigree ones. $138 for the Samsungs currently. So yeah, this was the best option because like the Samsungs in that it's got a 3D NAND associated with it, which helps with buffering and other sort of functionality. Sequentially speaking, it's got reads of 540 megabits a second, writes of 500 megabits a second. So it's on par with pushing what is the interface at the SATA 6.0 gigabits a second interface. Again, it's a 2.5-inch internal drive for the laptop specific in this relation. It will fit, and unlike the 9.5 big boy of the Western Digital that we are replacing, it's only got a presence of 7 millimeters, I believe. So that's nice, but that actually makes life a little bit finickier when you have to connect it up to the port, because sometimes it's not aligned properly once it's inside the notebooks, because they're very thin and they're designed very compact, obviously. So again, it's got a 3-year warranty, the BX500, and for the user case scenario, it was the best option, I believe, pressing forward. So welcome all again to episode 4 of Tech Consults. As we press forward, make sure you do hit that like and or subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps with the algorithm of the YouTube nation and myself inclusive. Just get a little bit more out of it for myself in regards to exposure and the ability for you guys to, either learn with me or from me and get something out of it and help pass it on. That's what it does. The interactions help pass it on. Otherwise, any questions, leave them in the comments below. And what we're going to get into next is the installation process of this SSD. Oakley dokley. So we've got, here's the machine in all her glory for a laptop from 2014. Nice large 15.6 inch screen. Unfortunately, there were some cons in relation to them, which you may have read in the slides previous, and that was that essentially the resolution was really tacky at 1366. Not the greatest thing in the world. But yeah, what we are going to be doing is unscrewing. There are, I believe, 10 screws on the back side of the laptop, and we're going to be installing subsequently the Crucial BX500 2.5-inch solid state drive as an upgrade. Now that's going to boost performance in relation to especially the read and write speeds and capabilities of the computer. Very much so was a bottleneck from yesteryear, using those spindle drives on as an operating system, boot drive and everything inclusive in relation to it. Apart from storage nowadays, they're not really worth using in that regards. On a consumer level especially. That's why they've been surpassed by not only SSDs but NVMEs. So we have to get this computer up to a reasonable standard in this day and age and give it a little bit more lifespan and stop it from going to e-waste for the next couple of years at the very least, just by providing, a bit of TLC to it and the TECHNESS Corner loving as well. Okay, so surprisingly, I don't want to manky up this box too much because I'm giving it back to the customer. They can dispose of it when necessary. We are going to need our trusty old official TECHNESS Corner. You say it with me. Unboxing supreme tool of the day, which in this case will be our miniature little paper cutter or letter opener we've got here. And there it is, guys. Let's get into it. So not much to it in relation to this unboxing. On a side note, what I expect to find is a crucial SSD. And there it is on that side with an unsightly white ass big ass sticker, which is disgusting. But on the opposing side, I believe it's a little more forgiving. So we do have some sort of user manual in here. It's not needed for us in this case. And here we have a little bit of a better finish on it. Nice black with a BX imprint and the crucial blue logo inclusive as well. So not too intrusive if you're using it in a build inside a case where it's visible. A lot of them are going in that fashion and way, which means just like your Samsungs, you don't have to feel too embarrassed that you got something that's like a Western Digital green, which honestly, when it comes to sexy, it doesn't look the best in regards to the aesthetics that it tries to contribute to, but unfortunately fails dismally doing. So we'll grab that out. I'll pop the stuff back in here for the customer, and let's start getting into, hopefully there are no problems in relation to undoing this. I've never worked with this notebook specifically. It did originally come with Windows 8. I do note here that it seems to be one screw already missing. So at some point, someone has opened this up. One screw missing. If I've got a replacement for it, I'll find something, I'll chuck it in there. But otherwise, no. And I will just pop those over here.
Love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything.
And then we're greeted with what is essentially our backside or exposure of the ASUS Vivobook S551LB variant. There's random little bits of this variant here has actually got 8 gigabytes of memory, and it's only DDR3, I believe. The memory is located just under this spot here. Okay, Wi-Fi module over here. On the other hand, DVD writer just here. Be careful with the Wi-Fi module if you're ever replacing it. The cable goes out and underneath here. Don't just rip it off these things, because sometimes the cables will rip themselves because the tape is that bloody strong. Batteries over here. Seems to be missing a screw over here as well. Just to note, on the intake here in relation to the cooling, there's a bit of a dusty, so we shall get rid of that. It has a bit more room to breathe, and we'll continue on.
And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Don't be
And from my understanding, there's 4 screws. From memory, sometimes you may have to remove other items before you can access other componentry, obviously. We're not repasting the CPU today. It's quite straightforward in relation to this one. And this whole sector here will come out and be removed. And then this part will come off here, which will allow you to apply, and then back in it goes subsequently the same way. There she is, Western Digital 1 terabyte, as predicted after reading up on what's inside it, essentially through the specs internally. Date 11th of November 2013, so it's almost a 10-year drive, and a 10-year drive that's a boot drive in a laptop is definitely going to get a fair amount of use. But unfortunately, it's not the end of our job. We're going to have to use this caddy still. So to utilize the caddy, we're going to have to remove the screws here, and that's where sometimes the alignment concern might come into place, because it's a lot thinner, this drive.
While he's looking back, mirror breaks after math. When I hate, I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just level up. Don't be scared. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts peeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision.
So at least that was noted that was missing, so that won't be held accountable for that. And that's unfortunate, we can't do anything about that. Now that the laptop is complete, we can flip her back over and we'll just turn her on to see if she's operational. But what I'm going to need is my install media. So the ISO / in this case we're using a USB stick. So we've got Windows 10 ready to roll. I think it's version 1902 and or 21, like something like that. So we'll need some updates on it. Sometimes it's better to have an older version and update it if you've got older software that you need to get running on it. Unfortunately,
I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient.
Okay, so now before the next reboot, so it doesn't cycle through the installation process all over again. Once it's finishing up, it's advised to take the media out, and this start restarting in 8, 9, 7, 6, 5. So I'll take it out now, and it should restart itself and continue the installation process. I will need to
statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. Then it's your chance to be ruthless.
So once we're into Windows, it's a matter of also the chipset drivers for this computer, surprisingly. As an ASUS laptop, it will have plenty, as well as the drivers for the NVIDIA graphics card, which is a GT. It hasn't got support anymore, but we'll get the latest drivers, which supersede what Windows will place on it, which is for a GT 740 2GB GDDR3 card from memory, internal card from memory. Apart from that, we shall optimize the system as much as I can on the back end, stop background operation of apps and that running and whatnot, privacy and stuff like that. Less of this and a bit more of some other stuff in relation to profiles being set up, regardless of being balanced or not. We'll make sure it's running at its highest performance capacity. It's generally going to be wired rather than disconnected from the battery and the power source. Yeah, I'll make sure it's juiced up as much as it can be so that the performance shows as well and nothing's left on the table, because it's getting to that end of lifespan of this device, and as a result, it may as well be used to the shizness of its capabilities. True that, people. So again, we're doing Tech Consult episode 4 with a replace, attempted repair, unfortunately brokenage in the hardware, and as a result, now we're through to the optimization section of the episode. So yeah, stick around, listen to the music and whatnot, DCMA approved, and at the end we shall be back to conclude. Let's go.
They don't wanna see me care. Anytime I make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb, and I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I will get back up, cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up a new degree, bitch, you ain't seen anything. I pop off with the new rock, electronic, blow the sonic roof up. I'm too honest when I take a few shots. They're too toxic, need to take the noose off. And you cannot save me, cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are half-nots.
You are not as tough as
I'm back, you know that I never left. I got tracks and some music that you never guessed. I don't slack, don't lose, learn your lesson yet. When I get to choose what I do, I'm like a weapon. I'm not sharp as many, but got hard, I'm ready to change. Scars to envy, to win large and plenty. I like to play fast, never change back. Calling out, I'll pay back, cause I'm great at that. Oh, you cannot save me, cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad.
Clean installation. Usually I do that all the time, especially when I do clean installation when you changing graphics cards from AMD to NVIDIA and NVIDIA to AMD. And probably you would want to use a application which is called DDU. It's a cleaner and it will clean everything out in relation to the old stuff, so that the new stuff has a good platform to base itself on, and there's nothing that conflicts essentially.
you are not as tough though.
Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are have-nots, who are not as tough as me. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are have-nots, who are not as tough as me.
Yeah, so once this is done, we've obviously already done the chipset drivers, as well as some diagnostical tools in relation to Crystal Disk Mark, as well as Cinebench R15, just to see how it's stacking up and performing in relation to itself. And from before, I do have the Crystal Disk Mark scores in relation to the previous drive and how it's operating. Hopefully we can showcase an improvement. We should see a drastic improvement. I in general can see an improvement in relation to the performance of the computer on the whole. It's much more crisper and responsive, which is a awesome little update to do if you're still running a mechanical spinning Rust drive. Consider the upgrade to an SSD, let alone if you have the opportunity, an NVMe SSD as well. So the graphics drivers have almost finished installing. Once this first set of updates is complete, restart the computer, continue on, and continue checking for any further updates until there are definitely no more. Then check one more time just to be sure. Yeah, it says restart now, but generally speaking, if you've got an update that's at a status of 100% on top of that, wait for those to finish as well, because otherwise they'll try to finish themselves while you're restarting, and it can cause conflict at times. So it's hitting 2.73 gigahertz at the moment as it's doing this, which is decent. Top clocks was meant to be 2.4, so it's running 8 gigabytes, as mentioned earlier, of DDR3 SODIMM memory at 1600 megahertz. And it could be a lot worse. If it had 4, I would have not recommended doing anything with this PC. It would be unmanageable and very, very slow and sluggish regardless. Yeah, we'll get through this and then we'll restart and rinse and repeat the process until there are no more updates. So it's been a fair moment. I actually had to take a pause from this video and get a couple of other things done, but everything has been finalized with this build per se. We've upgraded the SSD. Obviously we couldn't fix the actual problem, but we had to replace the faulty hard drive in the computer, and as a result we've got a new SSD. We're going to run Crystal Disk Mark after clearing the virus and just having it run willy-nilly, and we'll run the SSD now and compare both results just so you guys can see what the upgrade does on the basic level, even though you can't sometimes see all that the upgrade does in relation to the crispness and the responsiveness that the PC now entails. In the meantime, we'll run a Cinebench R15 run. We'll run that. All chipset drivers have been installed per se, all drivers in relation to the graphics card, which is a GT740M variant for the laptop. And it's lost support now, but I gave it the most recent drivers in relation to what it was capable of having. Windows doesn't give you on generic the latest drivers. There are still later drivers still, which may unlock some additional performance from the card before NVIDIA decided to nerf it and not support it anymore. But that was a far later drive. Now we've got Cinebench R15 running here. I'm not expecting miraculous results. I actually can't remember what I got before. I'll quote what we get now and also the Crystal Disk Mark score, and then I'll compare it up on the screen in a second's time. So let's get through this really quickly. Now, I'm not expecting miracles in relation to this. This won't necessarily improve performance in relation to Cinebench R15. I was just curious whether it did bring up a slightly better score or not. We were just over the 200 mark before, and again just over the 200 mark at 265, so fairly similar in relation to what it was before. I don't know if you guys can see that. The exposure's a little too whack. See it running through. The Crystal Disk Mark is on. And sequentially speaking, of course, we've got a read speeds at 544.53.
sequentially, of course, and I expect our write speeds to be thereof of around 500. Now, that on a comparison to what we had before is drastically different. And as we run through this set of tests, I will take a screenshot. I'll take a picture and I'll show the comparison in 2 seconds time once this test is completed, and I've got the picture which I can showcase on the last slide of the video before we conclude, guys. Taking us to what is essentially our results. So this is the best I could do to show you guys something in relation to results. So if you have a look over here, we've got Cinebench R15 that was run earlier on. We got a 246. With the newer run, we got a 265. So it's a 20-point increase on something that was in 7th place at 246. It's definitely got us a lot higher. Take my word for it, because as you can see, this is the Crystal Disk Mark scores that we got at the time, and these are the new ones with the new SSD. So sequentially, of course, read and writes were, there's no debate. It's a massive upgrade, and the system is much cleaner for it, much crisper, much more responsive. And even look at the renders in 4K, like they were non-existent then. And yeah, so much better for it currently. And if, yeah, guys, so this has been the ASUS S551L Vivobook Notebook that we've looked at today. Hope you guys got something in relation to it. There hasn't been many overviews of the book for many years, because it's almost 10 years of age now. So hopefully this sheds some light on this contraption if you got one just recently. There is a bit of life left in it still if you're using Windows 10, just for general purpose use, I'd say. It's providing you've got an SSD, which is what we've upgraded for the gentleman, our client, today. So my name's Seb Luka. Thanks for joining us at the TECHNESS Corner. And from everyone here, don't forget to subscribe and or like. Peace out, y'all. Bye.